The wedding was simple: white plastic chairs lined up on a backyard lawn, homemade decorations, the smell of roast duck and steamed buns drifting from the kitchen windows where her mother was still arranging dishes even as guests arrived. Her father had cleaned the gutters the night before. Her uncle borrowed a long red cloth to hang over the gate. The ceremony began just after 2 in the afternoon, when the sun had softened and the wind started to lift the edge of the tablecloths. Hannah stood at the center of it all, 27, newly graduated, newly married. Her makeup perfect, her posture flawless, her smile pinned to her face like something expensive she was told not to ruin. Her father, Daniel, had walked her down the aisle, not a church aisle, not a hotel aisle, but the uneven stone path they had laid together when she was a child, brick by brick. She used to help him plant the grass beside it. They buried time capsules in that lawn. None of that mattered anymore. She held Ethan's hands and said her vows with clarity. Ethan smiled the way a man smiles when he knows he's getting exactly what he wants. The guests cheered. A few cried. Photos were taken in front of the garden trellis her father had built 2 summers ago. No one noticed her mother in the kitchen, still wearing an apron, hands wet from washing dishes, making sure the next round of pork buns wouldn't burn. No one noticed her father's shoes, old and scuffed, the same pair he wore to her graduation. He had said he didn't need new ones, that the important thing was she was happy. After the ceremony, Ethan stood up to toast. He raised his glass and thanked Daniel and May for hosting such a beautiful day. Then he said something that would stay with Daniel longer than the taste of any wine. This house has been a part of Hannah's life since she was born. It's only right that it becomes the beginning of our new chapter. No one applauded that line, but no one questioned it either. Daniel lowered his glass without drinking. May smiled, but her hand trembled when she reached for a napkin. They didn't know that the wedding wasn't the start of a new chapter, it was the beginning of their erasure. 3 days later, Ethan moved in. Not into a new apartment, not into a place of their own. Into Daniel and May's house. The house Daniel had worked 3 jobs to pay off. The house May had kept warm, clean, and full of food even when money was tight and the winter was long. The house Hannah was born in. The house they had never thought would belong to anyone but the family they built. At first it was small things. The old photo frames came off the walls, replaced with canvas prints and neutral art. The bookshelf Daniel loved was pushed into the garage to make room for a smart TV. May's embroidered tablecloths disappeared, replaced by marble-patterned plastic mats. The teacups were boxed. Her incense burner vanished from the hallway. Daniel said nothing. May said nothing. They watched their house change one corner at a time. Then came the kitchen. Ethan hired a contractor without asking. Claimed it was just for a quote. 1 week later, the counter was torn out. May came home from the market to find her spice rack in the trash and the rice cooker unplugged. She stood in the doorway for a long time that day. Daniel found her sitting on the stairs, holding a broken drawer in her lap like it was something living that had died. They didn't say anything. They just sat. One night, Ethan mentioned a new bank account. He said it made sense to streamline household expenses. Hannah agreed. Daniel and May were asked to move their savings out of the family joint account to make things simpler, cleaner. They didn't argue. They just complied. Then came the letter. It was printed on thick paper and left in an envelope on the dining table. Dear Mom and Dad, we're so grateful for everything you've done for us. But as a newly married couple, we need space to build our life together. We've decided it's time for you to find a new place. We hope you understand. Let us know if you need help with moving or research. Love, Hannah. Daniel read it twice, then a 3rd time. Then he folded it and placed it in the drawer where they used to keep the grocery list. May stared at the words without blinking. She asked only one question. Did we do something wrong? Neither of them asked Hannah why. They had given her the answer to that question their whole lives. They gave her the house. They gave her their bedroom when she was 13 and wanted her own space. They gave her their savings when she wanted to study abroad. They gave her a second chance when she dropped out and came home crying. They gave her a wedding even when they couldn't afford it. They gave her the right to forget who she was raised by. Daniel and May packed their things. Not much. 2 suitcases, some clothes, a box of books, a rice cooker. They moved to a small apartment near the freeway. No garden, 1 window, stained carpet. Hannah didn't call. She didn't visit. When Daniel tried to ask about the family albums, she said they must have gotten lost in the cleanup. When May texted to ask if she could come by to pick up her mother's old hair comb, Hannah didn't reply. Instead, Ethan posted a photo online. New beginnings, first day in our forever home. In the background, the walls were whitewashed. The stair rail Daniel built was gone. The fish tank May loved had been replaced with a wine bar. And in the corner of the image, almost out of frame, the dining table was set for 2. Daniel and May sat in their new apartment that night and ate plain noodles. Neither spoke. There was no argument. There was no shouting. Only quiet. And in that quiet, something began to crack that no one would see until it was too late to fix. The first few weeks in the house felt like a victory for Hannah. She had what she wanted: a freshly painted bedroom, a new mattress, a quiet kitchen where everything was in the right place, no more clutter, no more mismatched dishes. No more parents hovering in slippers asking if she wanted soup. Ethan seemed satisfied too. He walked shirtless down the hallway in the mornings, called the plumber without asking, referred to it as our place on every Zoom call, grinning into the camera while sipping coffee from the mug Hannah's mother once used daily. They bought new curtains, installed new lighting, painted over the marks on the wall that measured Hannah's childhood height. Life looked clean, tidy, a blank slate. But silence has a way of making noise when it's all you have. Hannah started noticing it during dinner. Ethan would eat quickly, phone in hand, nodding occasionally when she talked. He stopped asking about her day, stopped helping with the laundry, stopped saying thank you. She told herself it was normal. They were married now. Comfort breeds quiet. But something inside her had started to shift. She woke up earlier, stayed up later, took longer showers, spent more time alone than she ever had when her parents were around. One night, she made congee the way her mother used to. Ethan took 1 bite, then ordered food from an app. She laughed it off, but she didn't make it again. Odd. 3 months in, Ethan lost his job. He told her at midnight, casually while brushing his teeth. They laid off my whole team, he said. No big deal, I'll freelance. She nodded, said it was okay. He stopped paying for groceries. She didn't ask him to. Instead, she cut back, canceled her yoga classes, stopped ordering coffee, took on weekend shifts at the bookstore. Every time she opened the mailbox, she felt a tightness in her chest. Bills. Electricity, internet, water, insurance. All of it still in her father's name. She meant to change it. But every time she tried, the guilt burned her fingers. One afternoon, she opened the cabinet and found one of her mother's old rice bowls still tucked at the back, missed during the purge. She held it for a long time. Then she put it back. Ethan started coming home late, always with a reason. A friend, a project, a gig. She asked once, gently, where he'd been. He laughed, said she sounded like his mother. She didn't ask again. A week later, she found a receipt in the laundry. Dinner for 2, an expensive place, far from town. He said it was for work. She nodded. But something began to calcify inside her. Not pain. Not sadness. Just the slow, dry formation of distance. Odd. She called her mother on a Sunday afternoon. May didn't pick up. She called again, then her father. No answer. She stared at her phone screen for a long time. No missed calls. No messages. No warmth. She sent a text. Hope you're okay. No reply. Odd. By the end of month 6, the house didn't feel like a home. It felt like a hotel where no one cleaned the linens. Ethan was barely there. When he was on the couch, headphones in, playing games. She began to eat alone. Sleep alone. Sit alone. The silence grew heavy again. This time, it wasn't the comfortable silence of independence. It was the silence of abandonment, of a decision she made with confidence and was now forced to live inside, wall to wall. One night after Ethan left to grab drinks with a friend, Hannah wandered into the garage. It was mostly empty now, but one box remained, sealed tightly with her father's handwriting on the side. Old photos. She hadn't noticed it before, or maybe she had and ignored it. She sat on the concrete floor and opened it. There they were. Birthdays, school plays, her mother in an apron, her father holding a paintbrush, the old garden before it was paved over. And in the very back, a photo she didn't remember. She was 7, wearing a paper crown, her parents on either side, smiling so wide it looked like their faces might split. There was no furniture in the photo, no fancy food, just the 3 of them, cross-legged on the floor, eating noodles. She put the photo down and cried. Not because she was sad, but because she couldn't remember the last time she had been held without condition. The next morning, she tried calling again. Her mother's phone had been disconnected. Her father's voicemail box was full. She opened the calendar, realized she had forgotten her mother's birthday. It was yesterday. She texted, "Happy late birthday, Mom. I miss you." No reply. She sat on the couch for hours. Nothing. Odd. That night, Ethan came home drunk. He dropped his keys, laughed to himself, stumbled into the kitchen. She didn't ask where he'd been. He didn't offer. He passed out on the couch, snoring. She sat in the hallway, alone, in the house her parents built, paid for, protected, sacrificed for. She leaned against the wall and whispered one sentence into the darkness. I made a mistake. The first time Hannah visited their old apartment, she didn't knock. She stood across the street, hands stuffed in her coat pockets, watching the window with the yellow curtain fluttering slightly. Her mother's curtain, hand-sewn, faded now. A plastic flower pot sat on the ledge, overwatered and leaning sideways. She didn't go closer. Not that time. She just stood there, for 10 minutes, staring. She wanted to tell herself she was just passing by, that it was on the way to somewhere else, but there was nothing on that side of town for her anymore. Not since she told them to leave. She came back 2 days later, this time with a small cake in a paper box and a folded note she had rewritten 4 times. She knocked once, then twice. No one answered. She waited another minute and slid the box gently onto the doormat. She never heard anything. A week passed. She sent a message to her father's phone. Just checking in, hope you're both doing okay. It didn't go through. She tried her mother. Same result. She called again. A mechanical voice said the number was no longer in service. She stared at her phone, heart pounding. Maybe they changed phones. Maybe they dropped their plans. Maybe. Or maybe they didn't want to be found. R. She called her aunt to ask if she'd heard from them. The woman's voice on the other end was colder than she expected. They're fine, Hannah. Are they mad at me? There was a pause. Wouldn't you be? Hannah opened her mouth to reply, but no words came. They hung up without saying goodbye. 3 months later, Ethan left. He didn't announce it, didn't pack boxes, didn't ask for permission or leave a note. He just stopped coming home. Stopped answering. Eventually, she got an email. It's not working. I need space. I'll come get the rest of my stuff next month. No apology. No explanation. Just vacancy. The house was quiet again. But this time it wasn't clean. Dishes piled up. The air grew stale. The lights flickered and no one fixed them. The mailbox overflowed. At night, Hannah walked from room to room like a stranger. The same rooms she had once taken from the people who built them. Now she had them all to herself. And none of it felt like hers. Odd. She stopped working. Not all at once. She just couldn't focus anymore. Emails blurred. Customers irritated her. Deadlines came and went. Eventually, her manager told her to take some time off. She never went back. The bills kept coming. So did the silence. So did the shame. Odd. One evening, she walked into the garage. The box of old photos her parents had forgotten was still there. She sat down on the dusty floor and opened it again. This time, she wasn't looking for a specific picture. She was looking for anything that made her feel human. She found an old envelope. Inside was a hand-drawn card. Her handwriting, sloppy, age 7. To Mommy and Daddy. I love our house. I hope I never have to move out. Love, Hannah. She read it 5 times. Then she folded it back up and held it to her chest. She didn't cry. There were no tears left. Only regret. And questions. What would have happened if she had said no when Ethan suggested staying? What if she had told her parents the truth that she was tired and scared and unsure? What if she had asked for help instead of demanding control? She never asked. She never gave them the chance. Odd. She tried one more time. She wrote a letter. No fancy words, no dramatic apology. Just the truth. I miss you. I was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know that I remember everything you gave me. And I'm sorry I tried to erase it. She mailed it. No response. 2 weeks later, the letter came back. Return to sender. No forwarding address. Her parents were gone. Not dead. Not missing. Just gone from her world. On purpose. Some nights, she sat on the edge of the bed and whispered into the quiet. I'm still here, hoping someone would hear. But no one came. No one answered. The house that had once been filled with warmth, with arguments and vegetables frying and her mother humming in the hallway, was now cold enough that she started sleeping in the smallest room, just to feel like there were still walls close enough to hold her in. Odd. One morning, she walked to the market her parents used to shop at. She wandered the aisles slowly, touching the eggplants her mother liked, standing too long in front of the soy sauce shelf. At the checkout, she saw a woman with short gray hair and a heavy canvas bag. For a second, she thought it was May. Her breath caught. She stepped forward. But when the woman turned, it wasn't her. It never was. She left the store empty-handed and didn't go back. Odd. A neighbor passed her on the sidewalk one evening. The woman smiled politely. How are your parents doing? Hannah froze. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't know how to answer. She still didn't know how to say the words out loud. They left. Because I made them. The neighborhood looked smaller than she remembered. The same sidewalk cracks were still there. The same maple tree leaned slightly over the gate. Someone had painted the fence, but the rust still bled through beneath the white paint. The street was quieter than it used to be, or maybe her memory had just added noise to make the past feel more alive. Hannah stood at the edge of the driveway, holding nothing but a thermos and an envelope. She had come back. Not to move in. Not to ask for the house. Not to ask for anything, really. Just to return. To look them in the eye. To say what she should have said the day she gave them the letter that ended everything. I was wrong. It had taken her a year. 1 full year of silence. Of an empty house that never felt like home. Of cold dinners and colder mornings. Of watching everything she thought she wanted turn to dust in her hands. She had thought the house would give her stability, power, control. But it had only shown her how empty walls echo when no one calls your name. And now, she was here, outside the small apartment she had once called pathetic. Temporary. It didn't look pathetic now. It looked like safety. Like the place where 2 people who had been hurt still tried to build something anyway. She raised her hand, knocked once. Then again. She stepped back, waited. She could hear movement. A slow shuffle. Footsteps. The sound of a kettle being turned off. A curtain pulled aside. Then quiet. And then the door opened. Just a little. Her father. His face was older, his eyes tired, but he looked directly at her. Neither of them spoke. Then he asked the simplest question. Why are you here, Hannah? She swallowed. The words were hard to form. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. He looked at her, then at the ground, then back again. She waited for him to say something. Anything. Instead, he stepped back and closed the door, not slamming it, just slowly, gently. With finality, she didn't knock again. She sat down on the step, held the thermos close to her chest, and waited. An hour passed. 2. No one came out. She left the envelope by the door. Inside was the deed. She had transferred the house back into their names. No conditions. No explanations. No expectations. Just a note. This was never mine. I know that now. Thank you for giving me everything. I'm sorry I thought I deserved more. She didn't sign it. They would know who it was from. Odd. Over the next few weeks, she returned. Sometimes with groceries. Sometimes just to sit on the curb. She never knocked again. She didn't ask to be let in. Sometimes she saw her mother through the window. Sometimes she didn't. Once, she caught her father sweeping the steps. They made eye contact. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away. That was enough. On the 7th visit, she brought a small container of congee. The way her mother used to make it. She left it by the door and walked away. When she came back the next morning, the container was gone. Odd. She never asked to come back. She knew she couldn't. But one day, weeks later, her phone buzzed. A message. No name, just a number she didn't recognize. Hope you're eating enough. The sender had no profile picture, no emojis. Just those 5 words. She didn't reply. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she cried. Not the angry kind. Not the ashamed kind. The kind you cry when you've been underwater for too long and finally reach the surface. Odd. She sold the house. Quietly. Didn't post about it. Didn't tell her friends. She kept none of the money. She had it transferred directly into a joint account in their name. She moved into a smaller place. Rented. No yard, no garden, no history. But she kept the rice bowl. The one she found in the back of the cabinet. Her mother's. Sometimes she would eat quietly at night, sitting on the floor, just like in the photo. Sometimes she would hum to herself, the same tune her mother used to sing while washing dishes. She never heard from Ethan again. She didn't need to. The echo of her past was enough. She started reading again, took a part-time job, went to therapy. She didn't try to rebuild what was lost. She didn't think it was hers to rebuild. But she learned how to sit with the wreckage. And how to wait. Odd. One morning, months later, there was a knock at her door. When she opened it, no one was there, but a thermos sat on the step, still warm. She picked it up and held it for a long time. Then she smiled, not because she was forgiven, but because someone, somewhere, still remembered her name.